Catwoman is not like the others. I'll show you how to clip Batman and Robin's wings. I will prevail.
She appeared in just 13 episodes of a television series, yet decades later, her portrayal remains the gold standard. The tight black suit, the purr in her voice, the way she could make Batman stumble over his words, everyone remembers Catwoman. But the woman behind that iconic costume lived a life far more fascinating than most people realize. This is The Hidden Life of Julie Newmar from Batman. The California girl who danced first. Julie Newmar was born Julia Shalene Newmeyer on August 16, 1933, in Los Angeles, California. Her parents weren't ordinary people. Her father, Don Newmeyer, had played professional football for the Los Angeles Buccaneers in 1926 before becoming the head of the physical education department at Los Angeles City College. Her mother, Helene Jesmer, had been a Ziegfeld Follies dancer in the 1920s and later became a fashion designer under the professional name Shalene, eventually transitioning into real estate investing. Julie was the eldest of 3 children. She had 2 younger brothers, Peter Bruce, who would tragically die in a skiing accident, and John A. Newmeyer, who would become a writer, epidemiologist, and winemaker. Growing up in Los Angeles in the 1930s and 1940s, Julie wasn't surrounded by show business in the way you'd expect. Most performers came to New York for theater or traveled to established entertainment centers, but Julie was already there, in Los Angeles, absorbing everything around her. From an early age, she studied piano, dance, and classical ballet with serious dedication. This wasn't a hobby, it was training. By the time she was 15 years old, Julie was performing as a prima ballerina with the Los Angeles Opera. She graduated from John Marshall High School at 15, remarkably young, and briefly attended UCLA, studying classical piano, philosophy, and French. But after just 6 weeks, she left school. The classroom couldn't contain what she wanted to do. She wanted to dance, to move, to perform. Julie got a job at Universal Studios working as a choreographer and dancer. She appeared in films as an uncredited dancer, including small roles in Slaves of Babylon in 1953 and Serpent of the Nile the same year, where she was covered in gold paint as the Gilded Girl. These weren't glamorous parts, but they got her in front of cameras and taught her how film productions worked. Her height made her stand out. At 5 feet 11 inches, she towered over most women and many men. In the 1950s, that height could have been a problem. Female performers were expected to be petite and non-threatening, but Julie's height, combined with her balletic grace and stunning figure, made her something else entirely, a larger-than-life presence that commanded attention the moment she entered a room. Broadway breakthrough and a Tony Award. In 1955, Julie made her Broadway debut in Silk Stockings, starring Hildegard Neff and Donna Meche. It was a Cole Porter musical, sophisticated and elegant, based on the film Ninochka. Julie played a small role as a ballerina named Vera, but she was on Broadway, performing in a major production with established stars. That meant something in the world of theater. It meant she'd arrived. The following year, she landed the role that would first make people remember her name, Stupefying Jones, in the Broadway production of Lil Abner. The role was literally a 3-minute cameo based on a character from Al Cap's comic strip. Stupefying Jones was so beautiful that men would freeze in place when they saw her, literally unable to move or speak. It was broad comedy playing on the idea of beauty as a weapon, and the role required someone who could sell that kind of hyperbolic, almost supernatural attractiveness. Julie could. She understood the joke and played it perfectly. Not arrogant or cruel, just naturally, effortlessly stunning in a way that short-circuited men's brains. She stayed with Lil Abner for its entire run, from November 1956 through July 1958, making that 3-minute appearance 8 times a week. Think about that. Performing the same tiny role hundreds of times and keeping it fresh, keeping it funny, keeping audiences reacting the way the scene required. She reprised the role in the 1959 film version, bringing Stupefying Jones to movie audiences who'd never seen the stage production. But the role that changed everything came in 1958 when The Marriage Go-Round opened on Broadway. Julie played Katrin Sveg, a Swedish woman who visits an older university couple, a professor and his wife, and creates chaos with her beauty and completely uninhibited sexuality. Katrin had no shame, no hesitation. She posed for nude sculptures, walked around in only a towel, and openly propositioned the professor, while his wife watched in horror. The role was written to showcase a particular type of woman, confident, seductive, intelligent, completely comfortable in her own skin and her desires. Julie inhabited the character so completely that critics and audiences were stunned. She wasn't just playing a seductress, she was playing a real person who happened to be seductive, someone with her own agenda and personality. The performance had layers. Katrin was funny, but she wasn't a joke. She was sexual, but she wasn't just an object. She wanted something specific and pursued it directly, which was revolutionary for 1950s Broadway. Julie won the 1959 Tony Award for Best Featured Actress in a Play for the Marriage Go-Round. At just 26 years old, she'd conquered Broadway in a role that perfectly showcased everything she could do: comedy, drama, physicality, and that indefinable presence that made people unable to look away when she was on stage. She recreated the role in the 1961 film adaptation, starring alongside James Mason and Susan Hayward, earning a Golden Globe nomination for Most Promising Newcomer. The film brought her performance to a much wider audience beyond the theater community. Suddenly, Julie Newmar wasn't just a Broadway actress, she was becoming a recognizable name in Hollywood, someone producers would think of when they needed that particular combination of beauty, talent, and confidence. She continued working on stage through the early 1960s. In 1961, she appeared in Once There Was a Russian by Sam Spewak, though the production closed after just one performance. Not every show succeeds, and Julie learned that lesson quickly. She appeared opposite Joel Grey in the national tour of Stop the World, I Want to Get Off, from March to October 1963, spending months on the road performing in different cities. She played Lola in Damn Yankees and Irma in regional productions of Irma La Deuce in 1965, continuing to develop her craft in different roles and settings. But television was about to change her life in ways even Broadway success couldn't. Television reached millions of people in their homes every week. A successful TV role could make someone a household name overnight in a way that even Tony Awards couldn't match. The robot before the cat. Before Catwoman, Julie starred in one of the strangest sitcoms of the 1960s, My Living Doll, which aired from 1964 to 1965. She played Rhoda Miller, who was actually AF709, a robot designed to be the perfect woman, with an IQ over 180. The premise was absurd even by 1960 standards. A psychiatrist played by Bob Cummings discovers that his new secretary is an android and tries to socialize her while keeping her true nature secret. Julie has said that playing Rhoda was the hardest role of her career, the biggest challenge she ever faced. She had to portray someone who looked human but didn't understand human emotions, which meant all her timing was off. Comedy depends on rhythm and reaction, on understanding what's funny about a situation. Rhoda didn't understand any of that. Julie had to play someone who was brilliant but emotionally blank, which went against every instinct she'd developed as a performer. The show had a cult following but struggled in the ratings and was canceled after one season. Julie moved on to other projects, making guest appearances on various television shows, playing the kinds of roles her appearance suggested. Beautiful women who complicated men's lives. She appeared on Route 66, The Twilight Zone playing the Devil, F Troop as a Native American princess, The Beverly Hillbillies, and other popular series. Then, in 1966, her brother came to visit. How? A phone call changed everything. Julie was living in a beautiful penthouse on Beekman Place in New York, one of Manhattan's most elegant neighborhoods. Her brother John was visiting from Harvard with 5 or 6 of his friends, and they were all sitting around the living room talking when the phone rang on a Friday or Saturday. Julie answered it, and someone, she thinks it was an agent, asked if she'd be interested in playing a character called Catwoman on a television series called Batman that was gaining popularity. Julie had never read Batman comic books. Her parents hadn't allowed comic books in the house when she was a child. They were considered low culture, not appropriate reading material for educated children. She had no idea who Catwoman was, what the character looked like, or what the show was about. But her brother John did. He and his Harvard friends watched Batman religiously every Wednesday and Thursday night. The show had become a phenomenon, attracting both children and adults with its pop art sensibility and campy humor. John and his friends jumped up from the sofa and insisted she had to do it. They knew who Catwoman was from the comics and could explain what made the character special. She wasn't just another villain, she was Batman's equal in many ways, intelligent and capable. Based purely on their enthusiasm, on seeing how excited they were, Julie said yes to the unknown voice on the phone. That weekend, she flew to Los Angeles. On Tuesday, she had a costume fitting, seeing for the first time what Catwoman was supposed to look like. By Wednesday, she was in rehearsal, learning her lines and blocking. By the end of the week, she was shooting her first episode. She'd gone from never having heard of Catwoman to embodying the character in less than a week. Most actors prepare for weeks or months for major roles. Julie had days. The costume was important, and the original design didn't satisfy Julie when she saw it. As a dancer and choreographer, she understood how clothing affected movement and how silhouettes read on camera. She modified the costume herself, using that professional knowledge. She moved the belt from the waist down to the hips, which completely changed the line of the outfit. Suddenly, instead of breaking her body into equal halves, the costume emphasized her hourglass figure, long torso, curved hips, endless legs. It was a small change that made an enormous visual difference. She made sure the material, black lurex, which had a slight sheen, fit perfectly without wrinkles or bagging. Every curve had to be smooth. She even added what she called an S-curve seam into the waistline to enhance the fit. The costume she created wasn't just clothing, it was a character element, part of who Catwoman was. The suit communicated confidence, sexuality, power, and danger all at once. She later donated it to the Smithsonian Institution, where it remains in their permanent collection as a piece of television history. Julie brought something to Catwoman that hadn't existed in the comic books: overt sexuality mixed with genuine intelligence and a sense of humor about herself. The character wasn't just a villain trying to steal things, she was a temptress who genuinely seemed to enjoy the game of cat and mouse with Batman. She wanted the jewels, yes, but she also wanted to make Batman stumble over his words, to see if she could tempt him away from his rigid morality. Writer Stanley Ralph Ross recognized immediately what Julie was bringing to the role and wrote it into the scripts. He created a humorous romance between Batman and Catwoman that became one of the show's most beloved elements. Adult viewers particularly appreciated the sexual tension, which pushed boundaries for 1960s family television. Catwoman would purr suggestions, lean in close, propose marriage, ask Batman out on dates, all while dressed in that skin-tight suit. Batman would stammer and try to maintain his dignity while clearly being affected by her presence. In one famous scene that fans still talk about today, Julie choreographed Catwoman sliding down a railing while propositioning Batman, telling him she wanted to marry him, and asking if there could be anything between them. It was all filmed in one 3-minute take with no rehearsal beforehand. Julie used her dancer's instincts to know exactly where to be, how to move, how to time every gesture. The cameras were set up and she simply performed, hitting every mark perfectly. At one point during the scene, she deliberately turned to show off her figure to the camera, a move that was slightly naughty for 1960s television but perfectly in character for Catwoman. That clip still gets thousands of comments online decades later, with people marveling at how bold it was for the time. Julie and Adam West, who played Batman, had genuine chemistry that wasn't romantic, but made their scenes crackle with energy. They adored each other as friends and collaborators, respected each other's professionalism, and genuinely enjoyed working together. But that mutual respect and affection translated on screen as sexual tension that audiences loved. When Catwoman leaned close to Batman and he nervously tried to maintain his composure, viewers believed it. The actors sold those moments through their comfort with each other and their willingness to play those scenes fully. Catwoman became one of the most popular villains on the show specifically because of how Julie played her and how the writers wrote for her once they understood what she could do. Fans wanted more Catwoman episodes. Critics praised Julie's performance as one of the show's highlights. She'd taken a character from comic books and made her real, made her someone people remembered. She appeared in 13 episodes across the first 2 seasons, from 1966 to 1967. Then she was unavailable for the 3rd season. She'd committed to filming the Western McKenna's Gold, which wasn't released until 1969, but was shot during Batman's final season. Eartha Kitt took over the role for season 3, bringing a completely different energy to the character. Kit was wonderful in her own way, but fans never forgot Julie's original portrayal. The Inventor nobody knew about. What most people don't realize is that Julie Newmar held multiple patents. In the 1970s, while still acting, she invented and patented a unique design for pantyhose. The patent described the product as providing cheeky derriere relief. Essentially, the design enhanced and shaped the wearer's figure. She marketed it under the brand name Newmar, a play on her own name. She also patented a brassiere design that was described as nearly invisible, inspired by the style Marilyn Monroe had worn. These weren't vanity projects or celebrity endorsements. Julie designed these products herself, understanding from her own experience as a performer and model exactly what women wanted from undergarments. She held 3 U.S. patents, 2 for pantyhose designs and 1 for the brassiere. The lingerie business did well through the 1970s and 1980s. Julie was a symbol of the era, and women trusted her understanding of what would look good and feel comfortable. The products sold based on her name recognition, but they succeeded because they actually worked as advertised. The real estate mogul of La Brea. Julie's parents had started investing in Los Angeles real estate in the 1940s and 1950s, purchasing buildings in the La Brea and Fairfax Avenue areas. Her father owned property on Fairfax and Rosewood Avenue. As a young actress, Julie helped manage the real estate enterprise while pursuing her performing career. In the 1970s, Julie went back to UCLA to take courses specifically focused on real estate. She wanted to understand the business properly, not just inherit properties, but actually know how to develop and manage them effectively. After her father's death, she took over and expanded the real estate holdings significantly. By the 1980s, Julie Newmar was a major force in real estate in the La Brea, Melrose, and Fairfax areas of Los Angeles. She didn't just own properties, she was directly responsible for the redevelopment and revitalization of those neighborhoods. The Grove Shopping Center area, which became one of LA's premier shopping destinations, benefited from her investments and community advocacy. This wasn't a side hobby. Real estate became as important to Julie's life as performing had been. She managed tenants, oversaw renovations, made strategic investment decisions. A 2018 article in the Los Angeles Times noted that she still had tenants in the Fairfax neighborhood decades after she'd started. The real estate business provided her with financial security that acting never could, allowing her to be selective about the roles she took. Life after Catwoman. Following Batman, Julie's acting career continued, but never quite reached the same heights. She made numerous guest appearances on television shows throughout the 1970s and 1980s: The Monkees, Star Trek, Get Smart, Bewitched, Love American Style, Fantasy Island, Chips, Heart to Heart, and many others. She usually played variations on the same character, the beautiful woman who creates complications. Television knew what to do with Julie Newmar, and she played those roles well, but they were limiting. She appeared in films including the 1969 Western McKenna's Gold with Gregory Peck, the 1971 television movie The Feminist and the Fuzz, and various other projects. In 1968, she appeared in a pictorial in Playboy magazine. In 1989, she starred with Bo Derek and Anthony Quinn in Ghosts Can't Do It, earning a Golden Raspberry Award nomination for Worst Supporting Actress. The film was genuinely terrible, and Julie was the first to acknowledge it. In 1995, she had a cameo as herself in To Wong Foo, Thanks for Everything. Julie Newmar, a film about drag queens on a road trip. The movie, starring Wesley Snipes, Patrick Swayze, and John Leguizamo, was named after her, making Julie Newmar a reference point for glamour and femininity. She became a gay icon, embraced by the LGBTQ community for representing a certain kind of confident, unapologetic femininity. She's remained a vocal supporter of LGBTQ rights throughout her life. In 2003, she appeared as herself in Return to the Batcave: The Misadventures of Adam and Bert, a television movie reuniting her with Adam West, Burt Ward, and Frank Gorshin. In 2016 and 2017, 50 years after first playing the role, she returned to voice Catwoman in 2 animated films: Batman, Return of the Caped Crusaders, and Batman vs. Two-Face. Hearing her voice the character again after all those years was emotional for fans who'd grown up watching her. The personal life she kept private. Julie has always been intensely private about her personal life, sharing only what she chooses to share. Over the years, she was romantically involved with novelist Louis L'Amour, comedian Maur Saul, and actor Ken Scott, though she never married any of them. In August 1977, she married J. Holt Smith, a lawyer. She was 44 years old. After the wedding, she moved to Fort Worth, Texas to live with him. The marriage lasted 7 years, ending in divorce in 1984. They had 1 child together, a son named John Jewel Smith, born in 1981. John has Down syndrome and lost his hearing due to meningitis at age 2. Raising a child with special needs changed Julie's priorities. She became fiercely protective of John and dedicated herself to ensuring he had the best possible care and opportunities. The demands of caring for John meant she became even more selective about work, often turning down roles that would take her away from him for extended periods. Julie herself has Charcot-Marie-Tooth disease, a rare inherited neurological condition that affects approximately 1 in 2,500 Americans. The disease impacts the peripheral nerves, causing muscle weakness and decreased sensation in the limbs. It's progressive, meaning it gets worse over time. This condition may have contributed to her slowing her career later in life, as mobility became more challenging. Despite these challenges, Julie has remained remarkably active. She's still on social media, posting throwback photos and engaging with fans. In August 2024, she celebrated her 91st birthday by posting a close-up photo of herself with glittery makeup, writing a message thanking her friends, family, and what she called her foundlings, the people she's helped over the years. She's appeared at fan conventions, still signing autographs and meeting people who remember her from Batman. At some events, she's worn cat ears as a nod to her most famous role. She clearly understands what Catwoman meant to people and embraces that legacy rather than resenting it. What made her Catwoman unforgettable? Julie Newmar appeared in 13 episodes of Batman. Eartha Kitt appeared in 6. Lee Merriweather played Catwoman in the 1966 film. Yet when people think of the 1960s Catwoman, they think of Julie Newmar. That's not an accident. Julie brought genuine sexuality to the role in a way that was daring for 1960s television. She played Catwoman as a woman who knew exactly what she wanted and used every tool at her disposal to get it. She was intelligent, funny, seductive, and genuinely seemed to enjoy matching wits with Batman. The character wasn't a victim or a woman who needed rescuing. She was an equal, someone who could outthink and outmaneuver the hero. Writer Stanley Ralph Ross recognized what Julie was doing and wrote to her strengths, creating storylines where Batman genuinely seemed tempted by Catwoman's offers. There was romantic and sexual tension in those scenes that was unusual for the show. Most Batman villains were simply obstacles to overcome. Catwoman was a temptation, a path Batman could have taken but chose not to. Julie's background as a dancer meant she moved differently than other actresses. She understood space, timing, and how to use her body to tell a story. Every gesture was deliberate. The way she walked, the way she turned, the way she positioned herself in relation to Batman, it was all choreographed in her mind even if it wasn't rehearsed. The costume she modified to emphasize her figure became the template for how Catwoman has been depicted ever since. The hourglass silhouette, the way the costume hugs the body, the confidence it communicates, all of that started with Julie's understanding of how to use costume to enhance character. Her Catwoman influenced how the character was portrayed in comic books, television, films, and other media for decades. Every actress who's played Catwoman since, Michelle Pfeiffer, Halle Berry, Anne Hathaway, Zoe Kravitz, has had to reckon with what Julie Newmar created. Some have embraced it, some have tried to distance themselves from it, but none could ignore it. The legacy that endures. Julie Newmar is now 91 years old. She's had a 7-decade career encompassing dance, stage, film, television, inventing, and real estate. She won a Tony Award for Broadway excellence. She helped revitalize Los Angeles neighborhoods through smart real estate investments and community advocacy. She raised a son with special needs, dedicating herself to ensuring he received proper care and lived with dignity. She created products, patented inventions that women actually wanted to buy and wear. She supported causes she believed in, particularly LGBTQ rights, using her platform to advocate for people who needed allies. But for most people, she'll always be Catwoman, and remarkably, she's made peace with that reality. She said publicly that the role was one of the great parts ever written for a woman, sexy, sassy, and successful. She understands that Catwoman gave her immortality in popular culture, that people who weren't born until decades after Batman ended still recognize her and know who she is because of those 13 episodes. The fan mail she's received over the years from men has been different from what she's gotten from women. She's noted with amusement and understanding. Men remember the costume and the sexuality, the way she moved and looked. Women remember the confidence and the power, the way Catwoman never apologized for wanting things and pursuing them directly. Both responses are valid. Both say something about what Julie created with that character. The hidden life of Julie Newmar is that she was never just Catwoman. She was a prima ballerina at 15, performing at a professional level when most teenagers are still figuring out who they are. She was a Tony Award-winning actress who could command a Broadway stage. She was an inventor who understood what women needed from underwear and had the business acumen to patent and market her designs successfully. She was a real estate developer who improved entire neighborhoods and created economic value. She was a mother who devoted herself to her son's care despite the challenges. She was a woman who faced serious health challenges with Charcot-Marie tooth disease and kept going, kept working, kept living fully. Catwoman made her famous, gave her the recognition that has sustained her through 9 decades, but it didn't define her limits or constrain her possibilities. It was one chapter in a remarkable life, not the whole story. The fact that she's lived that full, complex life while most people only know her for 13 episodes of a television show isn't a tragedy. It's just the nature of fame and how popular culture works. The iconic image often overwhelms everything else, becoming the only thing people see. But now you know more. You know about the dancer who became an actress, the actress who became an inventor, the inventor who became a real estate mogul, the private person who dealt with challenges most people never saw. You know about the woman behind the catsuit, the hidden life of Julie Newmar from Batman. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe to our channel for more nostalgic content about the stars who shaped television history.